Welcome to Screw the Stock Market. On this show, we discuss a variety of alternative asset classes, tools to help you unleash your money, a success mindset, and inspiration to see what's possible when we do things differently.
Hi. Before we jump into the episode, I just wanted to take a quick moment to thank you guys for being such avid listeners, and also to give you an opportunity to participate in various investment opportunities with Alex and I. Some of the same deals that we talk about will be offered to you so you can put into action what you've learned. Just go to www.screwthestockmarket.com and hit the Invest With Us button at the top of the page.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Screw the Stock Market. How you doing, Aziz?
Pretty good. I'm excited to talk about this article we found.
It's going to be good. This is right up our alley. I'm pumped to talk about it. Today we're doing another timeout episode, just me and Aziz hanging out and riffing. And we found this article and we thought it was just right up our alley for a few different reasons. For me, one of the things that's most interesting about it is that I started reading a book called Vivid Vision. And one of the things it talks about is visualizing and like really experiencing the finish line of your goals and kind of just being in that moment and living what it's going to be like to be successful in the things that you hope to someday achieve. And when I read this, I was like, wow, I hadn't thought of this problem, right? Oh no. And it's awesome. Do you want to summarize the kind of premise of the article for us, Aziz?
Yeah. So the article basically is a guy who's talking about success and kind of feeling a little bit awkward about being successful. So kind of just summarize it really quickly. He started a business before the pandemic and it was starting to kind of like do well, but it hadn't quite like taken off. And then when the pandemic hit, he was fortunate enough that it was in a niche position where that it just blew up and it really took off, and he was making a killing, enough so that, you know, a bigger company came and basically gave him an offer he couldn't refuse and bought him out. So now this individual who thought that he was going to take like another 10, 15 years until he could retire, this was with him planning on retiring early, now all of a sudden overnight is retired and, you know, financially in a very well-off place. That sounds great, right? You know, it's the dream. It's what we all dream about.
It's that finish line, yeah.
Well, yeah, it's the finish line. Well, his problem is that he feels guilty, or not even guilty. I think so much awkward about being successful, enough so that he doesn't want to tell people how successful he is and that he actually is financially free and retired. So he keeps dancing around the subject. When people ask him what is he doing, he keeps making up stories like, oh yeah, I'm in between projects right now, or, I'm just trying to plan out how to work on, this or that or the other. It's just kind of like very vague breakdowns of what he's doing to make it seem like he's working, because he just can't bring himself to tell people, yeah, I made it, I'm good, I'm retired. And he feels awkward about it, which is a weird thing to me.
Well, I can relate. And so he wrote into the magazine to ask for advice. Kind of like what are those etiquette people?
Dear Abby
kind of things. And so This one was pretty cool. And I think, so yeah, you pointed out, right? First is that little almost shame. I remember in 9th grade math class getting an award for being like getting the best grade in the class. And feeling ashamed about it because I didn't want to stand out. I didn't want to be the best student because I thought people would think, oh, he's a nerd or whatever. But then I moved to a different place, and there everyone was very competitive about trying to be the best. And it made a big difference in me.
Yeah.
So there's some of that. They have that idea of the fact that you're the average of the people you're around with, right? So this guy is probably an outlier among his friends, and I'll say kind of in some of the networking that we've done, like sometimes it's kind of cool to be the opposite, right? To be the one guy who's still working, and you're hanging out with a bunch of people who have retired. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I've been in that room a few times, and it's a little bit intimidating in the other way, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like remember that guy who tried to invite us on a deal with Oprah and like Serena Williams?
He was like, yeah, come on out to the island.
It's like, Yeah, come on to the island, Necker Island with what's his name, Richard Branson, and we can work out this investment deal with Oprah and Serena Williams. I was like, oh,
Yeah, yeah, invite me. Let's do it.
yeah,
So, okay, so that was the main problem. He had this kind of identity crisis. So what would you recommend if he came to you? He's like, Aziz. By the way, audience, people come to Aziz for advice on a lot of different things, a broad range of subjects. He's given medical advice, he's given financial advice, he's given job advice. What other kind of random stuff have you helped with people?
it's
Romance,
everything, literally everything at the time.
travel.
I don't even know.
Anyways, whatever it is,
Yeah.
come to Aziz. He's probably got some wisdom to share.
Please don't. I'm tired.
All right. So, what would you tell this guy?
I mean, I think that he has two problems. Like, one, it's a mindset issue. I mean, I think he's been conditioned to view that wealth comes with systematic issues of, either now you're a victim waiting to happen, somebody to try to take advantage of you, or it's inherently something that you should be ashamed of. Just to be successful or be wealthy, just because, these inherent ideologies and thoughts that are like money is bad, wealth is bad. And I think that's part of conditioning that wealthy people have created in the past, just so that, people who are less wealthy will feel as bad about not being less wealthy. It's like, oh yeah, the poor rich person, I live a humble life, but it's a richer, fuller life, even though I'm not rich. I mean, you could be rich and have a humble and full life too. It's not exclusive just because you have money. But I think it's something that was perpetuated by rich people in the past, just so the common people don't rise up and overthrow them, back during like feudal eras or whatever. So I think that's become ingrained in society to some extent, where you always associate some negative connotation with wealth. And I think the greed aspect and, being fearful of being taken advantage, that can be valid, but it comes back to your social circles too. I mean, if you chose your friends and you chose them well to begin with, it doesn't matter whether you have money or not. If those tendencies are there, they're always going to be there regardless of your net worth. So it's just a matter of you choosing good friends. And if you didn't, it's your time to just dump them and get decent people around you.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's money. That's the issue. I think it's mindset more than anything else.
And then the other topic that the Dear Abby person wrote back to them about, which I thought you and I both really resonated on, was the idea of identity, right? Like, so many people define themselves by their job. I am a doctor. I am
yes.
A good business person. I am this, I am that. And now this guy is either free of that for the first time, or maybe he never had it. Maybe, his identity was, hey, I'm so-and-so and I'm a good person. But it does, it might lend itself to a little bit of difficult conversation. But what's cool about this is that now he's in a place where he can spend his time doing the things that he's passionate about, doing the things that he's excited about.
Right.
He's not just going to sit on a couch for the next 40 years, however old he is. He's going to spend time doing things that matter to him, not necessarily for money. And so that's really the exciting part of it, is that he can say, well, I'm very passionate about this cause, or I'm very excited about this hobby, whatever it might be, but he's going to be doing things that matter to him.
Okay, but not necessarily. I mean, yes, he's doing things that matter to him, but keep in mind how powerful the concept of identity is, especially if your identity is tied to your work. So the concept of him saying, "Oh, I'm not working. I'm no longer an entrepreneur. I'm no longer a businessman. I'm no longer, like you said, doctor or, surgeon or, whatever it is that you are." The fact that you can no longer identify with this thing that has defined your whole identity, who you are, and how people view you and know you for so long is terrifying for a lot of people. Like, I know people who refuse to leave the jobs that they're in, even though they're completely burnt out, exhausted. It's just destroying them in many ways. But their identity and their self-image is so wrapped around that particular job, they can't even imagine leaving it. It's terrifying. So I think maybe he's also going through a little bit of that. Like, I'm not me anymore.
Yeah, I could see that. And
Yeah. Also respect. I think they're also probably, because respect is tied to how they view themselves within that role, which is probably why they enjoy being associated with that role. Now they don't feel like they're, I don't know, people have this idea that if you're not working, not everybody, but some people, that if you're not working and you're not going hard into something, you're just a lazy bum leeching off society. I was like, well, you're not leeching off society. You've worked hard. Now you've accomplished the goal so that you can relax. And that's a think a mindset that's unique to the US. Mm-hmm. We have this grind culture that basically just wears you down and breaks you down, because the idea of just stopping is just an anathema. It's like, oh no, you are not contributing to society. You don't exist as a person anymore. I think
that happens even among the wealthy and the celebrities. I mean, I remember some article about that where American wealthy people, American celebrities, if you watch a bunch of interviews, and they're always talking about, oh, I'm so busy, you know, I'm going from this, I've got this thing going on, this project, this entrepreneurship thing, this company, this thing that I'm, you know, and they're busy because of that same phenomenon of culturally, they have to kind of show that they're always hungry, they're hustling. And then I think that the counterpoint in the same article was something about Italy, and the wealthy people in Italy, apparently, most of them didn't work for their money. They tend to be kind of generational wealth from many generations past.
Right.
And so they live a life of leisure a little bit more comfortably, and they just hang out on the boat, on the yacht, and just kind of chill.
And it's not even like the wealthy. What is it? I just saw something not too long ago where this one guy was talking about how in Italy, just a salary of $50,000 in most parts of the country, you're pretty well off, like comfortable. Like you're spending your days hanging out at the cafe, just relaxing and enjoying time with family and whatnot. You're not like, you know, in survival mode like you would be here in the U.S., which says a lot.
Yeah, there's something to that. I mean, $50,000 would not go very far in the D.C. area, at least.
We'd be. I don't even know how you'd.
Actually, I remember my first salary when I came back to the DC area was $51,630 something as a GS9 step 1 government employee, and I felt really poor. That was kind of in the times when I would bring hard-boiled eggs to restaurants and hang out with you. And I was like,
I was about to say, I remember those days.
I'll just have a cup of water, please. I brought my own hard-boiled eggs in a plastic bag. And I'm not ashamed of that, but I definitely remember that feeling of being poor. Of feeling poor, not even being poor. I said feeling poor, which is a very different thing.
Yeah. Right? I mean, you can still make it. Don't get me wrong. It's a livable salary, but it's not anywhere remotely close to just being absolutely comfortable, at least in this area of the country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm sure in other parts of the country that's more than enough. But in the DC area, or like some other high cost states, like in cities like New York or LA, it's or you know, San Francisco, I don't think you would be able to make it.
Yeah, it's really expensive. So okay. So back to our little article. So we got identity as an issue. We got money is evil as one of his issues.
Yeah.
Is there anything else we want to?
Fear. The fear part. Remember, like that's where the greed portion comes in, where it's like somebody's gonna be coming around to try to take it away from me at any moment.
Yeah.
And I think that's a natural reaction. You work so hard to get something that you feel like you could lose it at any moment.
Yeah, it's understandable. But I think, you know, at least for me, the part of the most interesting about this article is the awkwardness part of it, where I'm imagining him at like some sort of networking event or something like that, or just maybe some like high school reunion or something like that. And people are like, hey, so it's been 10 years since high school. What are you doing now? And he's like, I'm retired. And he's just uncomfortable about how that will connect. And I guess with that perspective, I think it doesn't have to be, right? Kind of like what I was saying before, you talk about something that you're passionate about. It doesn't have to be where your money comes from. And he could just say, oh, I'm in between projects. Or he could just say, hey, I'm retired and now I'm dedicating my life to mowing the lawn and keeping my yard pristine, whatever it is.
Quick public service notice before we continue with the rest of the episode. We just want to let you guys know that we do have a survey that's available on our website at screwthestockmarket.com that you can click on, that goes through different things that kind of gauge your appetite for investing, what type of investing, and how you can get involved in investing and how we can assist you and aid you in that process. So feel free. It's a free survey. Fill it out. Based on the information you provide, we will send you some updated info and guides and tips and things like that that can kind of help you get started on your investing process. So completely free. Feel free to participate and give us some feedback. We would love to hear from you. But again, identity.
I think the identity part is really the maybe for him, yeah, maybe that's the big one. So this reminds me a lot of this clip I saw of Jerry Seinfeld, and we'll try to find the clip and put it into the show here. But pretty much they stopped Jerry Seinfeld on the street in New York, and the guy's like, "Hey Jerry, why are you still working so hard? You've made it. You're rich." And Jerry Seinfeld kind of like chewed him out. He's like, "What else am I gonna do? Just sit on my butt for the rest of my life? No, I'm an artist. I'm a comedian. I gotta work. I gotta do something." And so it goes back to the question of identities. What is your identity? Like, I have to work. I have to do my art. It's not for money, but it's because this is who I am and this is what I do. His identity is comedian. Right. He's an artist or whatever. For him, the money is not an issue anymore, but he still is a comedian. And maybe for this guy, he can create a new identity. Maybe he still keeps working if he really wants to, if that's so important to him. Point is, he's not doing it for money. He's doing it because that's who he is, because that's his calling.
Yeah.
And so I'm a big believer in those callings and kind of having a purpose.
Yeah, no, those are fine as long as it's something that brings you joy. But if it's just something you're doing just because expectations, or you're worried about how you're being perceived, I mean, that's bullshit. I mean, the whole purpose is to become free to pursue the things you love. So I think that's one of the things also this guy needs to figure out, if his hang up is because he's not doing something he loves, or he's just more concerned about what other people think of him. And I think it's more so that he's worried about what other people think of him because, he's not working. He's not hustling. He's not grinding. He's a bum in his viewpoint. I don't think he's a bum.
Yeah.
I think he thinks of himself as a bum.
Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, because if he was really passionate about the work, he would still be doing it.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, no, I think that's important. It's just to kind of analyze why we do what we do. And if at the end of the day, like you said, if it's an internal drive, if that's part of who you really are, that's great. If that's part of you trying to please other people, then that self-awareness can become really important to be able to take control and make those changes, right?
Right.
So hopefully we'll all get there one day, and we'll have to deal with this terrible, challenging question of what is your identity, which we talked about that recently, but yeah.
Also, mindset. What is your mindset, and how could it contribute to living a happier life even when you accomplish your wealth?
Yeah. And of course, I don't know if it's the inverse of that same thing is that, yes, when we reach the finish line, we'll take some time and we'll celebrate and we'll feel happy. But by the same token, we can take the time to feel the joy and satisfaction and enjoy our lives today as we get to that finish line, right? It's always about that journey.
Right.
It's about taking the moments to stop and smell the roses and play with my little girl, or to be with family and all that stuff, because the cat's in the cradle, right? Can't just so
I don't know what that means.
Oh, it's a song from the 60s. It's like, oh man,
I know it's a song, but I mean, I don't know
heard the lyrics of it. Okay,
I vaguely remember
it. Was born just the other day. He came to the world in the usual way. I'm not gonna sing the whole song, but the point is like the father's always too busy for his kid, And as the kid grows up over the years, then they switch places. And then the father comes to the son. He's like, hey, why don't we go for a ride or something? And the son's like, sorry, I'm too busy. And at the end of it, he's like, oh, he's just like me. The boy grew up just like me because he's too busy for his family. And so it's bad.
Okay. That makes sense.
And I
don't know. I'm a fob, you know. I don't know all these things. Barely in this country.